This video was made possible by the EA Creator Network. Hey everyone, it is Tanya. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new here. Today I am back with another build in the world of Innisgreen, which is the world that comes with the brand new Enchanted by Nature expansion pack, which comes out later this week on the 10th of July. I was lucky enough to get super early access to this through the EA Creator Network, which is why you will see my username bouncing around the screen. And with that, I wanted to mention that this is not final software. I also only have access to base game and Enchanted by Nature, so you're not going to be seeing any other packs or features in this build, but that also makes it a little bit more accessible and easier to download. So if you would like to download this build, once the pack releases later this week, it will be available on the Sims 4 gallery under my EA ID, which is Gryphi, Gryphi. You can also find that under the hashtag Gryphi, and that info will be in the description down below as well. So for this build, I really wanted to build something that felt like hill houses or hobbit houses, like things built into the ground. So that is exactly what we are doing today. I am so excited to share this, but before we get into that, if you're thinking about picking up the Enchanted by Nature expansion pack, please consider using my code Gryphi at checkout. You just enter it when making a purchase on the EA app, and it doesn't cost you anything extra, but it does support me as a creator. So thank you so much for considering, and thanks to EA for sponsoring this portion of the video. So I decided to create two of these structures, which are just created from a single box, and then I rounded some roof pieces on either side and tried to connect it with a roof piece in the middle. One is on the flat terrain, and then I raised up the other one by like 8 notches so that way it would nicely fit some steps on it. And then I'm playing around with some of the new doors and windows in this pack and just trying to find something that I liked. And I did struggle with this for quite some time. I tried to cut out some of that footage where I'm just placing the same doors and windows down and not liking it. And that's when I decided, you know what, we're just going to leave them as is, and I'm going to start playing around with plants and figure out the best way to make this work together. Because I think the key to this style of build is really having the windows and doors not so prominent and really covering it in lots of foliage. And that's exactly what I ended up doing. I think it's really cool. My one complaint here, though, is that with the latest patch and with this pack, we have the ability to add plants to roofs, but it doesn't really work with curved roofs. So I don't really add them on this build. I just keep this grass texture that came with the pack. But the whole lot in general has a ton of landscaping, which is all from debug and show live edit objects. But it was just frustrating because I would have really liked to add plants to the roof. It just wasn't working. So I decided not to. Anyway, up on this higher level, I used this new pergola to have a little bit of a seating area. I end up just having a single bench down there. And then I'm working on the terrain paint. It ends up looking very similar to this in the end, but the terrain paint does delete itself at some point, so I do have to redraw it. So if you notice that it's a slightly different shape, that would be why. But here I am using some of these debug fences. I thought that they were really pretty and a nice way to frame this side of the yard, which is where I ended up having the new swing set. There's also going to be a dollhouse out here a little bit later, and the lower building is actually going to be where the bedrooms are, and then the top one is where I have the living space and kitchen and all of that. When I was building it as two structures, though, I didn't have an idea in mind in where I was going to have everything. The decision to have the bedrooms lower down than the rest of it is because the lower building is on a diagonal, and kitchen counters do not like diagonals. You can place them, they just have a really harsh shadow, and it's not ideal. So I did decide to have the living space higher up, and that ends up being a bigger area anyway once I add some more space to it in a little while. But most of this build is going to be landscaping, as you probably could imagine from the thumbnail and how much extra space I have on this lot currently. So we're going to be out here quite some time working on placing down lots of plants. I also got that little fairy house, and I'm placing the apothecary table now right outside of the home, so your Sims can work on that skill if they'd like to. And I'm using a combination of debug plants and the couple ones that we got as like roof decorations in the game. And oh my gosh, the new mailbox is stunning. I really, really like that one. I was excited to use it here. And I also really wanted to have a fence around this lot, and I thought about using this one, but I don't end up keeping it in the end. I end up actually using a debug one that is made out of stone, which we should be placing down here shortly to replace this, but I did try the different ones that came with the pack first. And the flower one actually does get used up on the top level for the like higher up building. But over here, I think the rock worked a little bit better. So I'm just placing that down here. I should be getting an end piece. And I just think it looks really nice. I always like when we get these rock walls in Show Live Edit objects. I think they're very convenient, and it just felt like it matched this lot a little bit better. I'm not entirely sure why that is, but I was way more pleased with this than the original fence that I placed down. And then I'm just getting a ton of different plants. The color scheme here is definitely a lot of purples and yellows when it comes to both the plants and the interior of the home. And I had a lot of fun with that. I thought it was kind of a fun color scheme, and here is when I am extending that main building, deciding to have a bump out on the side so that I could create more interior space, which on this side is where the kitchen's actually going to go. And the whole interior, at least of this building, with the exception of the bathroom, is pretty open concept. I have the dining, living, and kitchen all sort of in the same room. I don't have any separation for it. I thought it looked nice that way, but you could probably separate it off if you prefer. I'm not really sure what the standard is for this style of home, but I thought it worked really nicely and I was quite pleased with it. Anyway, here I am adding that fencing I had mentioned. I thought it looked nice up here in a small amount. I feel like when there's a lot of it together, it just feels a little bit too repetitive, so I decided not to use it on the lower portion, and I also grabbed some planters down here, some of the larger ones and smaller ones. And that palette that has all the flowers on it is a debug item that is outside of the rabbit hole flower shop in town. So it looks like that they are selling things there. I thought that was kind of a cute addition to put out here. And then in debug, there's also some planted versions, or not planted versions, some versions of the plants in game that are in pots. So I did put one of those out front, or two of them right around the bench. And then this back corner felt kind of empty, so I decided to add a small pond back here. I thought it was kind of cute. It fills in the space nicely, so just playing around with the terrain a little bit more, and I should be painting in there as well. And I think way later on, I'm not sure if I show it on camera or not, I do end up changing the color of the water so that there is leaves and stuff in there. I just felt a little bit more natural that way. But first, I am just adding some more plants around it, a bunch of the same ones that I was using all over the lot. And then here are some rocks there, and you can see at this point the terrain paint has changed because it disappeared. And I also added some more rocks all around the property to kind of look like it's supporting the structure and adding some more interest into this home that's built into the hillside. And then getting lots more plants heading up this little section of the hill. I think it looks really cool. I also really enjoyed this trunk that is covered in little mushrooms. That originally came in debug with cottage living, but I think it works really nicely here. And I'm actually really excited to be able to build some stuff that uses both this pack and cottage living in the next week sometime when I have access to this pack in my regular game. It's going to be really fun. I'm very excited for that because it's always fun to have access to the new pack, but since it's super early access, it's only with base game, so I don't get the ability to play around with it with other content. Anyway, we are moving on inside, and you can see where I made that decision on the building the kitchen was going to be in based on the diagonal, and this is where it ends up being. I really want to use some of the funky swatches on the furniture, but I keep coming back to the natural browns. I think I like them a little bit better, so I did end up using those in here again. And then I thought I wouldn't like this mossy rug, because we have something similar with the Snowy Escape, I'm pretty sure, and I never use it, but in the context of fairies, I really like it. So I've been using that more than the other rug, which is surprising because the other rug has a griffin swatch on it, which makes my heart so happy. And I believe I do use it in here somewhere. I think it's in the primary bedroom. As you can see here, I just split up this building. It's going to be a primary bedroom and then a nursery. And then this building is the kitchen, dining, living, and a bathroom. Plus there's an office space as well, all in one big room. And I really leaned into the yellow in here. I have the yellow and green sofa. We have the wallpaper that has the yellow wisteria on it. I think it's really pretty in here. And I do really enjoy the colors with this pack. And I'm just trying to come up with some more ideas of what I can create when I have access to everything else. There's a lot of purples in this, so I might do another color drenched apartment using some of the purples. Definitely some fairy stuff in other worlds or maybe in an apartment. Just lots of ideas. I've mentioned some before in one of my other videos, but I have lots of things brewing, and I'm actually hoping sometime this upcoming week to stream some building with fairies and all of the other packs. So if you are interested in joining for that, I will have a link in the description if you'd like to follow me over on Twitch. It's just twitch.tv/Gryphi. So if you want to be a part of the live building process, I'm hoping to be back at it this week, and it should be a lot of fun. Anyway, this is our dining table. I did make sure to put a toddler chair here because I was like, oh, I'm going to have a baby of some sort here. You're eventually going to need a high chair. I don't keep it at the table, though. It actually moves around this room a few different times because I decided I didn't want the table against the wall. I put it sort of in the middle of the room, and I just thought it looked a little bit out of place, but I liked the idea of having it. So you'll see that bounce around a few different times, but here is me moving the table in, changing some of the swatches, and then I get some artwork up above the desk, and I'm actually going to be grabbing one of the new bookcases that came with the pack. It's this one that looks like a tree, and I just think it's a really cool piece, and it fills up the wall quite a bit. I do wish this pack had more wall art, though. Most of it is locked behind debug with the flower pressing book, and I really wish we just had more art in general. There's a lot of wall ivy. I keep calling it wall ivy. Wisteria, like greenery for the walls, but there's not that much other artwork. Anyway, this is the desk. I have a little door up there, small frame, and a laptop, and then I'm finishing up the kitchen with just getting some extra cabinetry here and wrapping it around the corner. And that's when the high chair has to move again. And it actually ends up going like right next to the couch. I think it works okay. It's not perfect, but it fits, and that's what we needed. And then I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget a trash can. So I got that outside and inside. And then I'm placing down some of these ceiling lights. I almost called them wall lights that have mushrooms hanging from them. But for some reason, when I click on the lighting category, it doesn't show up. I can only seem to find it when I filter by all of the items in this pack. So that's a little bit of a weird situation. I found a weird glitch. And then here is our bathroom. I decided to use this like scaly wallpaper. It kind of looks like dragon scales on a couple of the walls to bring in a purple accent. And I used the corner tub for the first time because you're having a baby in this house. You're going to need to bathe them. So I decided that made the most sense. There's no shower here, so your Sims are going to take longer to get ready in the morning, but I thought it was okay. And then we're moving on into the nursery, and I love this crib. It is so, so cute, and I'm just excited to work with it with other packs as well, but it works so nicely with the wallpaper that I was using in the main house, so I decided to bring that in here. I also got a little leaf rug and this toy box, the little acorn with the faces on it. It's adorable. I think that's going to be a very commonly used item for me in kids' rooms. There's also a new dollhouse, which I placed outside. So there is plenty of areas for this kid to enjoy some fun. And then I wanted to bring some ivy in here as well. So I keep calling it ivy. I'm so sorry. Whenever I see like wall greenery, I want to call it ivy. Anyway, I brought in some wisteria and I moved that to one of the other walls and then put some artwork up above the crib. And then there's more of that here in the hallway as well. Plus a couple of these wall lights, which I used outside, which look like mini fairy houses. You can see those there, and I also used the mossy rug a second time. And then finally, we are into the primary bedroom, and I'm using some more of that scaly wallpaper in a green color here. And then grabbing our rug. I believe I did use the Griffin swatch because the colors were the best. So that was kind of fun. And then I'm getting a couple of bedside tables. This pack didn't come with bedside tables, so I did have to use base game ones, which is a little bit weird, but they did match the colors quite nicely. I just got a new lamp on one side, an old lamp on the other, and the new tabletop bookcase that has the mushroom bookends. It's so cute. And then just finishing off this room with a mirror over here next to the bed. I used this floor length one that we got that has the mushrooms on it. And then the new dresser we got is this really fun like asymmetrical piece, which works nicely for adding a mirror on one side. So that's over here as well. And I just put one of the new like customizable planters where you can pick pick a different pot and then place whatever plant you'd like in it, and your Sims can actually care for their house plants. And I picked a succulent. Currently, these plants are a little bit glitchy. Whenever you change the wallpaper, they seem to disappear, but I'm excited at the future concept of your Sims being able to care for their house plants. But anyway, that is the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed this build. If you did, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more, and click that bell to be notified when I upload. Enjoy the screenshots, and I'll see y'all soon. Bye, everyone.